start recording.
When are you going to start?
I'm doing it shortly. Like, I always forget, and then I go back, and I always remember, and then I always forget again. All of them are here, but I'll do it. All right. So, I would like you to navigate to the section that is ArcGIS, and I have, as I said, a couple of things that you can look in here. What we're going to be using is one of the desktops available through the VM. I do want to mention, though, that the Ag Center has some codes for ArcGIS. If your advisor requests one and they'll have to write a little thing why they need it, they can get a license for ArcGIS on their computer. Therefore, you can get it too. But it is somewhat of a lengthy process. I asked for it last fall and I got it sometime halfway through spring. We don't have that many, so it's like a case-by-case thing. All right. So, as I said, as a homework, I would like you to follow through and review these 4 videos that I posted in the Introduction to ArcGIS. The best way to do this, if possible, is to have these on one screen and ArcGIS on the other. So follow along with whatever they're doing. Perhaps you can come in one of these labs, have that running in the actual computer, and use your laptop to follow along. It's very straightforward. It is very simple. It's going to guide you through the basic processes of everything useful for ArcGIS. Today, we're just going to do 1 or 2 examples to get our hands dirty with this and understand the basics. But if you follow these 4, you can do practically everything that needs to be done with ArcGIS. Okay, all the basic stuff, creating maps and all that. Okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and click on the daily tasks 2/19/2019. And before I get there, I also have a couple of more that talk about basic commands, queries, and all that stuff. But I found those to be trickier than just doing this with R and then put it in ArcGIS. So that's going to be my philosophy. All my analysis is going to happen in R, and then the outputs are going to be done in ArcGIS. The thing is, you can do some rudimentary analysis in ArcGIS as well. But it doesn't make sense to do so, since you have a much more powerful tool. Anyhow, let's go back to our daily task. And what I want us to do today is connect to the VLab and find any of the 3 ArcGIS desktops. The 10.6 is the most useful one. So if you don't remember how to get to the VM, try to see if you have such a little symbol in your computer. If you don't have that, perhaps you need to look at somebody else's laptop for the day. But in any case, try to connect. And you'll get these desktops. 10.6.0 will do the trick, but the other ones probably work as well. And so let's log in there. If that's not working or is giving you trouble, I guess the 10.5.1 rules. ArcGIS 10.6.
So which one is different between all cases?
They are just different versions of ArcGIS, older ones versus newer ones. The 10.6.0 is the newest version that you can get, but it's very, very slow. Also, most users would like to use that, so there are a lot of people using it and it will crash, and then you just use it. 10.6.0. But I guess if all of us tried to connect to that and maybe like another 10 or 15 people doing that from somewhere else, we might end up in trouble and use an older version still. Alright, don't forget, if you're trying to log into the VM from home, you need to first VPN. You don't have to. Alright? So it takes a little while to log it up, but you should be faced with such a thing. If you are, you can again use that desktop to navigate to Moodle. Please do so right. You can save it in here, and then if you right click and copy, drop that down, you can paste over there. Not if you're a Mac user. If you're a Mac user, that's not paste. But the VM protocol that you use to connect has the file transfer protocol already built in. I'm not sure how we got around that with the folks that were using a Mac, but one idea that you could do is whatever files you generate, upload them to the Moodle.
That's what I was.
All right, so everybody should be looking at such a thing if you connect to the VM. And as I said, let's navigate to Moodle through this, because I don't want to be jumping back and forth. So let's go to Moodle LSU, because we will need to download a bunch of stuff. And again, I used that list that I gave you yesterday, or whatever day it was, with data and agriculture, to download some maps. All right, so back to our daily task. Let's now navigate to census.gov. This part has a bunch of maps, shapefiles, the type of things that ArcGIS wants. So what I want you to do is I want you to go and click on, where's it at? Tiger Line Shapefiles, new 2018 shapefiles. This little link. Do you see that? Okay. So it will be this window that pops up. Now, as we said, ArcGIS basically outputs some maps. So all this is encoded using this abbreviation SHP that corresponds to shapefiles. Now, shapefiles have polygons with geolocations. That's basically it. And on top of these polygons with geolocations, there are specific things that you can add. Basically, databases, so anything structured, images, if you'd like. So suppose that you have an image from a satellite that fits that geolocation, there is a way to make it attached to that shapefile. So they're definitely optimized to put data which have geolocations on it. And this site gives you some basic shapefiles and the data that comes with it. What I would like us to do is I would like us to, do you see this tab here? Let's go to download. And we can either write a little command to download a lot of things, or we can do that manually by clicking on the web interface. So the web interface allows us to download different types of maps based on your own queries. I want to check year 2017. And the layer type that I want is US states. So states and equivalent. So I'm going to download information about the United States in a format that broke the United States into states, including their shapefiles. All right, so change this in 2017 and change this into states and equivalent. And click submit. And it's going to take you to this download page. Hit download national file, and a bunch of stuff are going to be downloaded to your computer. 90% of the times this is a zip file, because a shapefile is not just one file, it's got a lot of stuff attached to it. Find where you downloaded this. All right, I would strongly suggest create a new folder, and I'm actually giving you some hints on how to name that folder. How about we name that folder ArcGIS example? All right, so let's name this folder. Let's create a new folder. Let's call it ArcGIS _ And since I'm the one doing it, I'm going to call it TG _ ArcGIS example. Then I'm going to take this file that I downloaded and unzip it inside there, right? So if you right click on this, you do extract all, you can tell it to extract it in here, right? Or you can extract them where they are and dump them into that folder.
Where is the extract?
Just right click on the button and one of them should be extracted. It's one of the options. Meaning when you see things like that, it's a zip file, and Windows now has an extract all option. Let's go ahead and use that. I don't know, Macs probably also have something like that.
Yeah.
So download that thing and extract it. Anybody still struggling with this? You should be looking at a folder that has maybe 6 or 7, or actually no, it has 7 or 8 data tables in it. Yes, no, maybe. Yep. So out of all these files, you probably recognize the DBF, database file, right? We've opened up DBF files in the past. That's where all the actual data is stored. But I want to bring your attention to the SHP file. That is the shapefile that ArcGIS uses to output the tables, right? The images. Fantastic. All right, let's fire up ArcMap. And you can do that by going to the VM and typing down here ArcMap. Start typing that and we'll get ArcMap. So go to your bottom left corner and start typing ArcMap. And that's a desktop app, so click on it. And in most cases, when you're looking at a specific field and whatnot, you don't have a template. But today, we're going to be using data that has to do with the states. So ArcGIS has already built in maps that correspond to states. So we're going to use a template that is there. If you're doing it for any sort of data, start with a blank map. But now we're doing states. So if you go down here, it says traditional layouts. One of them is USA. Click on that. And it's going to give you some options. Choose the option USA. Right? Since I know that my data is, represented in states, I can use one of the already built-in layouts. So let's use that one. All right. So choose that and click yes or OK or whatever it wants. All right. So here's more or less how ArcGIS looks like. All right. It's got a bunch of bells and whistles on the top, all sorts of things that you can choose. The main output is in the middle. It's that map right there. And on the left is the table of contents. That's basically all the layers of information. Since I use a traditional layout, I get a lot of stuff for free. I get road maps, I get capital cities, I get major rivers, yeah, and all the interstates and whatnot. I get all these for free. If you just download shapefiles, you don't get all these things. You have to insert them on your own. Let's play around a little bit with this left part. This is where all the possible layouts are at. When I started off, okay, let me do it again. When I start off ArcGIS with ArcMap, it takes you to the start something new. If you're doing something general, you start with a blank map. But now I know that I'm going to be doing states, and that is already built in. Traditional layouts, USA, and choose USA. Okay, so you get some extra information. You get the boundaries right, and you get things looking cool. You get the lakes and all that stuff. All right, and notice also you get the window for the basic, the conterminous, whatever they're called, the United States. But you also get Alaska and Hawaii sitting here on the left. There's a way to just delete these two if you don't want them, and just keep all of these and whatnot. Now, for example, if I don't want to put the lakes, go over here and unselect the box that has lakes. So that removed all the lakes for the conterminous United States. And if you take it from here, that removes the lakes from Alaska. Similarly, I want to remove the rivers. Untick that one, untick this one. So you see now that the table does not have any lakes and rivers. And you can continue on by removing other stuff, or for example, if you want to remove the interstate highways, click on that one, and goodbye interstate highways. Finally, you might want to remove the capitals, you remove the capitals. So all these capital states and interstates are already pre-built when we use the template to begin with. And you can clean it up or use as much information as you want. There are ways to put in other information. For example, if you have your favorite cities somehow in a list, you can attach that there and make it appear. Yes, sir.
How can you go and change if you want to change your interstates from red to blue and your rivers from blue to green?
So let's go to lakes, for example. Let's stick that back in. And right-click on the lakes thing and click on properties. Wait, nope, that's not it. It's I think those are by default, but we'll see that later when we change the colors of other things. You can go here and do properties and change a lot of options, so we'll see that in a second. All right. Now, so that creates basically an empty template for us to put data on top of it. Okay. What I would like to do is put the data that we just downloaded as a shapefile on top of that one. So the idea for ArcMap is it creates layers. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing the basic layer with the boundaries. There's another layer of the lakes. There's another layer of the interstates, one on top of the other. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a new layer on top of that with more data. To do this, there are various ways. One of them is if you go here on the top, under where it says selection, you see that? There's this little button plus, which says add data. Do you see that? Click on the add data, please. And that's going to open up a file dialog. By default, it takes you to the ArcGIS documents. So if you'd like, you should have all your ArcGIS projects in there. But that's kind of like cumbersome. Instead, what you can do is you can ask ArcGIS to recognize other folders. And it's this little button. Do you see it under selection? There's a little button. Click on it, and it says add data. Add data, and it gives you this dialog. And what you can do you see this little button here that says plus, and it's got a little folder? Click on that one, and basically this way you're telling ArcGIS my data is not in the default folder, is somewhere else. Read it from there. So now navigate to where you saved the data that you downloaded. Me, it's in downloads. Here's the example. So navigate to that folder and click OK. The moment that you click OK, that folder now becomes part of the path that ArcGIS recognizes. So anything you dump in there, ArcGIS will be able to pull and put it in here. If you don't do that trick, it's just not going to appear. Okay? Which one? So did you click add?
Before, like adding the using ArcGIS, you have to use ArcMap. Start typing ArcMap.
All right. So now that you've added that folder in there, you will notice that there's a shapefile that is popping up. Click on that shapefile and hit add. Here's the thing now. In order for this map to work properly, it has to A, match the template that you used. So for example, if you have data here for counties and you're using a template that's for states, it's not going to work. If you have data only for Louisiana and you use something for state, it's not going to work. So it has to match up. I had data for states and equivalent. I need to use the template for that. Or use no template. That's one. Two. In order to get all the files to work together, they need to be in the same folder as the shapefile. Okay, and it's not just one, there's 6 or 7 of them. So every time you output shapefiles, it will come with multiple files with the exact same name, but different abbreviation, different type at the end. All of them should be in the same folder. All of them should have the same name to begin with. Agreed? So what am I talking about? Look at the folder that we were analyzing. All of these things are named TL 2017 US State. And then it's CPG, DBF, PRG, and so on and so forth. SHP and so on. Agreed? So, although it seems that we're just loading the shapefile, in reality we're loading all of them. Are we okay with this? Now, when I added this layer, notice that besides the old ones, there is also now this TL 2017 US State dataset here. Do you see that? There's a new layer popping up there. Right? If you right-click on it, you get a bunch of information about it. One of them is to click on the Open Attribute Table. Click on that, please. This is the database file that came with that shapefile. So that's what I'm saying, like when you load the shapefile, you load all the other files that are named the same thing with this. And so the shapefile, so the DBF file contained information about each of the states. In this case, we have the abbreviation of the state, you have how big they are, how much area is in land, how much area has water, and where's the latitude and the longitude. Okay? Are you with me so far? Now, the whole point is to basically use this information to output some stuff on the map. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So before I move and continue on doing whatever we asked this thing to do, I want us to figure out which ones are the big states versus which ones are the small states in terms of area. right? So one way to do that is say, okay, let's find the mean area, or I should say the median area, and then color the big ones with a color and the small ones with another. To do that, right-click on the layer that has that information and go down there where it says Properties. Hit on Properties. What you're looking at now is the properties of this layer, and what we're going to be using is the one that says Symbology. Now, go to Categories, or maybe Quantities. I should use Quantities for this. Go to Quantities. So this part of the ARC map is using the structured data to split things in various ways. So in this Quantities tab, there is this field called Value, and if you click on it, you will see all the columns that have some sort of numbers in that structured database file. So let's choose A land. This is basically the area for each state. And what I want to do is I want to break it, I want to classify it into two breaks, the big ones and the small ones. To do that, hit on Classify, and there are various ways to break it up. You can use natural breaks, or you can use quantiles. I want quantiles. And as a matter of fact, I only need two quantiles, the big and the small. So change the classification method to quantile and the classes to 2. Right? If you want to break them into 4 categories, right? Very small, medium, large, large, you can just change this into 4. And so on and so forth. There are various ways to break it apart. I just want to break them into 2. Hit OK. And you also get to choose the color schema. Let's use, let's use this purple one. So light purple is going to be small, dark purple is going to be large, and then hit apply. And OK. So this is how your map looks like if you break it by land area. The purple ones are the big states, and the lighter purple are the small states, and that makes a lot of sense if you remember how the United States were created. In the beginning, most of the United States were the East United States, and then when they started migrating to the West, they just said, this is Iowa, cut this big chunk and make it into Iowa. And this is, Texas, make it like super large. That's exactly how it happened, buddy. So, I mean, New York State is a state, and Texas is a state. Come on, give me a break. You can fit like 10 New York states. And all right. So that's one way to do it. But what if we, for example, did not want to break it by states, but instead we want to break it by how much water is in there? Again, you go back to your properties, and you go to Symbology, and go again to Quantiles. This should be by default. But instead of using area land, choose area water. Yes, those are the only 2 numeric variables that it can use to produce quantiles. Let's choose area water there. And don't use any normalization. Again, break it into 2 classes. But again, you have to change this not to natural breaks, but instead to quantiles. So this is going to find the median, right? And say the smaller one than that is 1 and the other one is the other. And when you hit apply, this is a different breakup based on how much water is there. Now, as you can see, things look much different than before. And it's more or less as we expect, except for Utah. I don't know why Utah has a lot more. probably.
Is it landmass water or is it coastal?
Landmass water. Lakes. Lakes, rivers. Okay. And again, you can break that into 4. How about you try to do the same thing, but instead of breaking it into 2, break it into 4 with respect to water. Go ahead. And I would also suggest play around with the color schema. Let's see if you can produce any good maps over there. Now notice that we didn't get anything for Alaska and Hawaii. Apparently those were not included in the data set that we downloaded. So layer, right, only applies to which other states the
Alaska on our
Perhaps then we just, so see what we did? We added the layer only in the contiguous United States. That's a bummer. We can just add it to the whole thing. So we can go to Hawaii and add the layer there. We go to Alaska and add the layer there. You can do that by clicking on Hawaii. You go ahead and do that. So that you guys can just see this. And another way to add data. You can go there. The other way to add data is go to this specific map, and I chose Hawaii, and click Add Data and put that on Hawaii as well. So now Hawaii becomes part of the thing, and you can hit on Alaska, right click on it, add data, and put that there. Okay, so that becomes part of the analysis.
So even if you have Alaska and Hawaii highlighted, and you click add that on top,
It's not going to do it now. It's probably because I had already hit that conterminous when I pressed that plus button instead of just doing for the whole. It doesn't matter. Let's just focus a little bit on the conterminous United States anyway. Now, as I said, you might be super creative here. Use your favorite color schemas and break things into pieces any way you want. And let me go all out here. I'm just going to do quantiles based on water, break it into 10 different, and I'm just going to use this craziness and apply this. All right. Here you create a colorful map. Notice the following. Bottom left corner is where you get the legend most of the time. So what do each color represent? And you can shift things around so that you can move Hawaii. You can even delete Hawaii, or oops, I deleted the wrong thing. And you can change here titles and whatnot, right? You can, I double clicked, it says United States of America. I can double click on practically everything. Delete this part, add things. Move them around, all sorts of things. So let's say you somehow generated a map that you're comfortable with and you want it. You even moved, I don't know, the, not that one. I want to move the legend. All right. You move the legend here. Now it looks great. And you also have your coordinate system. Okay, so you're feeling happy with this. Go up to where it says File and click on Export Map. And you get to choose what type of output you need. I would save it as either as a PDF or a JPEG. These are perfect to put in presentations. I give it a little name, I don't know, test 1, and save it, I guess, on the desktop. And voila, it's going to create a PDF file of it, which you can go ahead and look later. Okay. Agreed? So it was one of the options, top left corner, export map. Are you with me so far?
it was the recording and then that's
The what?
Mine was working, but now it's not. So whenever I apply the colors, it'll show the colors for second. It was all teal.
Ooh, interesting. So perhaps you have another layer on top of that that overrides the previous one. That might happen.
Oh, looks like that's the case. Yeah. Yeah. I guess it took the original layer.
All right.
So you say start map and then
Say it again. File. I mean, you can do all sorts of things on the map by clicking, right? Click on names, change the names, move the legends, move the delete Alaska. You can do whatever you want. When you're comfortable with this, file, export map, and give it a little name, and so on and so forth. And there are other stuff that you can change here. You can change your format, resolutions, you name it. Yes.
So with the area that like A water, those numbers are a little messy. Could you change those numbers on the legend and it not change anything else, or if you change it, will it?
Change them where? On the legend?
On the legend.
I'm not even sure that you can play around with the legend. Yeah, you can't really play around with the legend. You go to items.
Change the name of, like you clicked on one of the colors on the left side with the name, like there. If you could change it there.
If you click twice on the
Yeah, I mean,
if you click twice, you can change on label.
you can change the label here. That's what you mean. Yeah, and this will reflect the label there.
And it will.
No, it's going to use these numbers to make the break, and the label could be whatever you want. So you can change this into a lot, little, whatever you want. Yeah. All right? Fantastic. So that's more or less how you play around with basic stuff, right? Let's take it one step further now. So what I want us to do is I want us to create some extra columns and maybe even, if we have time, do some further analysis. But up until now, you should be able to download a shapefile and view it in there. Either attach it to one of the templates that you see or create something out of scratch. Let's actually practice that a little bit. So close this completely.
so can we say this in our computer?
Yeah. So when you save this map on your desktop, let me show you, or wherever you saved it, you can right click on it and hit copy. And by dropping this down, you're back to your computer and right click and hit, whoops, it should have paste. What? Well, anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this little trick. I'm going to grab it here and why are you not doing this?
I remember this happened last time too.
I wasn't able to.
Yeah.
File transfer protocol not working. Fantastic. Yeah, okay, fine, no problem. Google Drive it, open up your Google Drive and drop it in there. But this is odd. Yeah, it was working. Let me see the other way around. Can I take this, for example, put it here? Nope. Can
You
I?
can do through the thing. So if you go at the
Yeah, this way it works. No, it doesn't.
So if you go like network, go to network,
Yeah, I can go from up here, but I don't want to. I'm saying like
just dropping it.
just dropping it worked. Let's say it works when I'm at home. But I guess it's not working now.
Do you think that has something to do with the ArcGIS?
It could be that the ArcGIS is somehow doesn't let you put stuff up and down. Why? Who knows? It has to do with whatever protocol they're using. Perhaps this ArcGIS virtual machine does not allow you to do that. The general desktop does, though, right?
That's what I've done.
Yeah. Okay, well, whatever. You could always, like, as I said, if you're in your virtual desktop, you can navigate to your Google Drive, through the internet here and put it up there. We always have ways around it, folks.
Yeah, but I think if you click on network on the left,
Yeah. So it would be possible to do it this way, but let's not worry about that. I don't want to do file sharing here. It's gonna mess things up. I don't want to do that. I definitely don't want to do that. See, now it got hang. See, I didn't want to do that because now it's invoking a different protocol, which I don't really want to get into. Yeah, so no, I don't want to do anything. That's fine. Goodbye. All right, now let's assume that you downloaded a shapefile that does not correspond to anything. How do you work with that? Well, again, you go and start ArcMap. And now just choose a blank map, hit OK, and hit the plus button one more time. If you have already linked a folder, it should be there. And add it, and as you can see now you only get, you know, the states themselves. They're not nicely fit into a bigger map, they're just the shape files that you get. Okay. Are we getting this, folks? So templates help in order to get like a clearer map, in order to get, you know, extra stuff like roads and rivers and lakes and you name it. Okay. Otherwise, you're using whatever shapefile you just got from the internet. Okay. So very important thing is to know right-click, properties, symbology allows you to play with a lot of stuff. If you go to categories, suppose that you want, for example, to have every state with a different, every state having a different color. So click on categories and find unique values. Choose the value name, the value field name, and click on add all values. So once again, you're under symbology, go to categories. And categories works with all the variables that are categorical. Whereas quantiles works with all the quantities works with all the variables that are numeric. So I chose name and then click on add all values and click on apply. So right now each state got its own color. One color per name. All right.
How did you get the
It's a button, the mouse button, zoom in and out. Otherwise, there is this magnifier allows you to do a bunch of stuff, but you can also do right click on the table and you can do fixed zoom in and it takes you here, fixed zoom out and it takes you there, and everything else I just play with the roller on the mouse.
So
there's also something down here that you can zoom in.
Out on the top left.
And the view. Yeah, there it is. So that's why I asked you to review the tutorials. They explain like a lot of these buttons, and that's the only way that you can actually get to feel all of it. I strongly suggest you play around with it until you create a map that you're comfortable with. Okay? Right? Fantastic. All right. Now, I want to go back and let's move back to our desktop now, to our laptop now, I guess. Leave that in the back if you don't mind. And what I would like us to do is I would like us to, again, only use the database file. So I guess we need to, again, go here and download that into our computer. Or maybe I even gave you this whole thing in that folder. So what I want to do, click on this Google Drive folder. Let's see if that works. Okay. So I already have it here. You don't have to download anything. Instead, go back to our Moodle and go to the daily task and hit on that link that I'm giving you, and it takes you in here. I also have the analysis 1.3. Let's download that. Save it somewhere. And this will need a database file. That database file, if I remember correctly, yeah, it's in here. This is the same thing that I asked you to download from that. Go to that link, and one of them says TL 2017 US State. And from that, I only need the database file, so download that. And save it in the same directory as the R code. Right? So I need the R code, and then I also need the database file, which you can download again from the same spot, or you can download it from this directory that
So you open it up, and you can just take it, so right to use on that one, that's where you add the layouts. You add data, which is there. Now you have the data that so first the template is perfect.
Yeah, me too. I don't know what's going on. So the easiest way is to basically download them from the Google Drive and that I'll just need these two files to do a little bit of analysis. Again, it's going to be very simple. Download them somewhere to your computer. And that VM folder is now. So you should be now back into your own laptop and have a little folder that has exactly two files. The analysis R so we need the analysis 1_3 and then this database file, the DBF. All right, let's open up the analysis file.
We're opening up the analysis file in our regular desktop.
Yes, the other desktop doesn't have R, unfortunately. Alright, so this is a very easy little code here that will replicate the breaking it into big land masses and small land masses. So what I'm doing here, the first few lines of code, first off, let's click on session, set working directory to source file location. Alright, so open up the the R code and make sure you hit session, set working directory with source file location, so that you tell R to look into that folder. And then run the first 4 lines, please. This should load the database file and create a data frame from it. Wait, am I missing a package? Wait, so I don't need Imager, but I do need Foreign. And I don't read Excel. Just give me a sec. For some reason they did not want to cooperate. Okay. And well, okay, all right. I have a typo here. You don't need all that. You just need TL_2017 blah 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 blah. So the path that I gave was for another folder, so just there's no need to put an extra path. Just put the name of the DBF file you need. So shorten a little bit that path. Right? So the path that I have by default on this analysis is not the right path. Since we save the DBF file in the exact same folder as this R code, we only just need the file name is in the same folder. The // puts you in a different folder. So in this case, I saved both of them. Change the path to be just TL_2017_ES16. And run that. The moment you run it, you will see that we created a data frame. That data frame is the database that is attached to it. And it is the same data frame that we saw in the ArcGIS. All here. Here. And that part, yeah, that is the R code. Download that piece. Also, inside here, inside this folder, put both of them in the same folder. Open that the R. Did you hit session again? Session. So what did I do? Source file location. Let's see if where you save this is where you save the DFI. So go into that folder, both of them should be in the same folder. Where did you save the analysis 1.3? And where did you save the data? This exercise 4. Close down this R, close it. Close this R window, close that down. Save selection. Close that down and open it up from there. Now I'm sure that we're in the right hidden session. Set working directory. Source file location. Good. Now run the first couple of lines. You're missing the .dbf. Main file name, that's a .dbf.
Will it make a difference if the file is in a folder within the folder?
It's much easier to do that. So when we're doing it like this, we're asking to do it like this. We are assuming that it's in the same file as this analysis. If you put this file somewhere else, in this line you need to specify where that somewhere else is.
Okay, so this would be somewhere else.
Somewhere else. It's inside the folder.
Yeah, and then it's going to move all of this.
We actually only need the DBF file. Alright, let me explain what I'm doing here. You notice that you can do some breakings using ArcGIS. Right? We broke it into big states and small states. But if you really want to do the job right, you should do all sorts of analysis using some other software, like in this case R. Save your output in the DBF, and then just look at it into ArcGIS. Because as we saw, ArcGIS does a bunch of breakings and all that stuff, but it doesn't have so much flexibility. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to replicate the things that I did with large states versus small states, but I'm going to do it only on the DBF file and then view it on ArcGIS. And then we can do all sorts of crazy things. Like I'm actually going to do a little code that finds large states and lots of waters, which you can't really easily do on ArcGIS. So how am I going to do that? Well, the next few lines of code are going to create this dummy variable that's going to be 0 for all the small states and 1 for all the large states. So in order for you to do that, you create a new column, which I'm going to call char land. And this char land, in the beginning, it's always zeros. Yes, sir.
I don't break. Why open just the DBF file?
Because that's the only one that you really need to change numerically. And it's already attached. We will save that back. And that's what gets attached back to the DBF, to the shapefile. You don't need to change the shapefile. In order to change data and computations, you can just do that on the DBF. Everything else handles associations on a map.
Yeah, gotcha.
The real data is hidden in the DBF, nowhere else.
We need to do any kind of things. Like
Any type of statistical computation, any sort of breaking based on numbers, breaking based on values, breaking based on whatever, all of that can be handled inside the DBF.
Yeah, but usually, I don't know, at least in my agriculture, we do not need just to analyze the data, but the graphic data. So both related.
Sure. But what I'm saying is, if you want to play around with values, right? You're not putting anything that has to do with neighboring tiles or anything like that. You're just doing values. Use the database file, nothing else. When you put that back, you can use the shape files to do neighbors, and you can do things like stripes and all that.
So I think it's just reading the DBF is faster.
Absolutely.
Than just trying to get both together.
Precisely. And the database file, you read it, you manipulate it with R, you save it back, and you get all that for free. All right. So the next two lines of code generate a dummy variable, which I call character land, and all of them start with 0. But then this line says change that character line into a 1 if the land area is greater than the average land area. So now the last column has a bunch of zeros for all the small ones and a bunch of ones for all the big ones. All right, so I split the states into large states and small states by this little trick. Okay. The small ones were the zeros, and the ones that are greater than the average, you change that into a 1. That's the easiest way to do it. Give everybody a 0, and then change only the big ones into 1s. So now, if you view the DF1 all the way to the end, there's this new column that's called char land that has a 0 if it's a small state and a 1 if it's a big one. I'm going to do the exact same thing with water. Okay? Yes, sir. Yes, sure. It is the same command as the one that you're doing. So these two lines of code, again, create a categorical variable, which I call char water, and that gives a 0 to gives a 0 to the small areas and change all the big areas into a 1. So now Your DF1 has yet another one, right? Zeros and ones. Agreed? So, if we now want to save our output with the extra 2 columns, what we should do is we should put write.dbf df1, because that is the data frame that we have been creating, and give it the same name as the one that we started off with. But if I do that, it's going to override the previous one, which I kind of don't want. Still, let's go ahead and do that, and we'll fix that later. Let's call this thing 1. If you run this command, you're going to see now that in that folder, you have another DBF file. We can grab this guy and attach it to the previous one, but in order for it to work, we need to change this name into just DBF. We need to remove that +1. Okay, so in order for it to work, we kind of need to override the previous DBF file. Okay, all right. Let me go ahead and try that one out, and I'll do it this way. I'm going to cut it from here, and I'm going to put it on my Google Drive. And then I'm going to go into the VM. I'm going to go to the Google Drive here. And hopefully it's going to work kind of fast. That's probably right. And it should be somewhere down there. There it is. So I'm going to download it from here. And I'm not even sure where it saved it. Okay, so it saved it here, but it has that extra 1. Let me go ahead and fix that one. And you have to dump it into the same thing, and it's going to ask you, do you want to replace? Let's hit yes. But in order for that to be reflected back here, I need to go out and do it again.
Where are you replacing it?
Inside the shape folder that we just downloaded originally. Remember when we downloaded on the VM all the files, it created a list of them. One of them was the DBF. I went in there and replaced it in.
On Google Drive?
On the VM. But I just used Google Drive to transfer it to the VM.
Oh, I don't know if you can do that.
Yeah. So I overwrote, but since I wanted to keep the old one, I saved it as TL 2017 US State 1 DBF. I just added that one line to write it back. Yeah, we've been working with data frame 1, so now I'm using data frame 1 to write back onto the DBF. So you're going to do write.dbf, parentheses df1, comma.
So you go back into, you copy the state one, and you go back into the video.
So what I did is, whatever DBF file I got from here, when I wrote it in my analysis, right? Wherever it was. I grabbed that and now I put it somewhere in my Google Drive.
Yeah.
Then I went to the VM and I downloaded that and I placed it inside this folder where you were doing the example. The moment that you do that, it has an extra 1 at the end. If you try to change it and remove the 1, it's going to say, do you want to replace it? Say yes. So you're basically replacing the old database file. And when you open up your map now, the moment that you do hit plus data, this is the old shape file, but it has a new DBF file attached to it. How can I tell? Well, look, if you right click on it and hit on open attribute table, you will notice that this one now has 2 more variables at the very end.
Okay, so somehow you need to save that guy. And hold it. Okay, so here you're saving it somewhere. You're under local machine. That's fine. You can save it like that. It's just going to have that. And you have to go where you did the R analysis. Where is this one? Where is this happen? Oh, where is it? So where is that saving things? We'll go back to hit on session. Set working directory search by location. Figure out where you're saving. Okay, so you use this dot and the slash. So write DBL. And you remove all that effect. You save it in the exact same folder. It's that name, run that part, so that it will be in the same folder as the analysis folder and the database file. So that one needs to make it to the VM.
So the purpose of this is, instead of doing the analysis in ArcGIS, it makes sense to do the analysis in R and create whatever columns you want. And just add them this way. Enlarge the database file somehow. So now it will be much easier for me to break it into big versus small by, again, yes.
My VM is just saying you want to replace it to
Yes.
state 2. It's like, so it's just wanting to name it so that it's not really right.
Right, so delete the old one and rename it.
Okay.
The old one. Remove the plus the one from this.
Yeah.
Remove file.
So, would you have to delete the old one, right?
Yes, because it's, Windows does not allow that. But if you were to just drop it into this folder, it would ask you to, do you want to replace the old one or replace it?
And do we have to re-upload that, or is it just in the...
Yeah, you need to come up. So that's another thing. If you've already started the map with the old DBF, in order for all this to work, you need to exit out and start it back again. That's a little bit annoying, but that's what it is.
And don't save any changes.
Even if you save the changes, the moment that you reopen it up, it's going to be using the new database. Right? And you can tell now that I have these 2 extra columns in the table. And I'll use these colors to color my my graph. By, again, going here and doing properties and going to symbology, going to categories, and using now the char land, add all values, and here you can pick whichever colors you want. And as you can see, we're getting a similar thing as before. Okay. Now the difference is this breakup is done based on the mean. The previous breakup happened based on the median. That's why the two maps are not exactly the same. But for example, it's very hard to convince ArcGIS to do stuff using the knee. Let's read that apart and then pass it in.
For them to get around the struggle.
Are you with me so far?
Okay, you're in the 10.5, right? Exit out, go to the 10.6. Get out of this VM, go to the 10.6. So that view is kind of, you missed this one.
How do you get to that big giant map again? I know how you get to
Go
it.
through,
In the beginning,
Yeah.
instead of start arc map again. So this is the, instead of going to using blank map, use one of the previous
Oh, that's right.
I wanted to create a new computer so that since for the work with the all files.
But I think there's only epistemology.
How did you put that in?
You did? Yeah, okay.
Well, I have to do this is the DBA.
Didn't use the same media. Maybe media equals to 1.
Yeah, and so I overrode that one.
It should work. Exit out to this. Are you sure that the DBF is DBF and DBF?
Yeah.
It should be the whole system. So we have the old one. So we still have the old one.
The old one just.
Delete the old one first. Delete that now. Change that over. So you see the name of the standard DBF. Because if you have the original DBF and the new DBF, it's only going to use the one that shares the exact same thing as the shared file.
So now if I look like that.
So mine's not going to use it, right? You have all the bells and whistles and bigger drive.
No, it is good.
Yeah, since I read it, don't know.
I already downloaded it.
What did you put it?
Yeah, you could use it. Yeah.
No. Let's see what I was trying to do.
It's in the same folder, you delete the yeah. There it is. This one. You see, first copy. First copy. Yes, okay.
I mean, do whatever. It's not a requirement, but from now on, I'm just asking you to start playing around with it. You have a basis. Now go to where you say the updated version of it. What I would like to do is be able to find the media files to store on those. Ever work for you? Were you able to at least media file? I mean, this discussion is not there. Good. Okay, so now we have a working knowledge of most of the stuff. That's good.
Okay, you didn't put the data. You put an add layer. There. This, not the media, the SHP. Right there. Right click on this. Properties. Quality.
You have to go back within this stuff.
HR. You need to put the updated media file for this.
Not the old.
Basically, shape file. So this to be able to
Okay.
shape file, you have to have this.
All right, that's basically it for today. We know how to load. We know how to export. Everything else is up for playing around with it. The 4 videos that I showed you will give you as many as you need. The mentality is as follows. I use a shapefile to show things. I use a database to do math and stats and whatnot. Right? And then if I want the new math and stats to appear, just use the new database file right in the top of the producer. So I have no access. And I think that's the best way to use it. Now, this ArcGIS is already kind of connected with Python. So if you know how to write Python code, you can directly write Python code in ArcGIS. ArcGIS also has a MySQL database manipulator with queries and all that. It looks just like PostgreSQL. So for those of you that are interested, you can do it like that. But the best way to do it, take the DBF file, change it with whatever the best program is, and then use ArcGIS to run this stuff instead of shoving everything into ArcGIS. So you're going to have a new task Monday. We're going to try to add a lot of things to this table, and we will also see a map that is coming from a field, like an actual plants. And, well, actually, no, it has field itself, whatever the nitrogen they put on it, the yield, elevation, all sorts of things that are going to be attached. So we'll see. My advice is open up your computer like that, have another desktop or something, watch these videos and try to follow along. Okay? Play around with the program. Honestly, folks, you're not going to be able to figure this one out unless you play around with it. It's got so many features, there's no way for me to cover all of them. we don't use all of these features. We use maybe like a 10%. It's like Excel almost. You just do a couple of stuff all the time, but it can do all sorts of crazy things. I have personally used it a couple of times when I want to output something visually. I have not done a lot of analysis with it, but I have had a colleague of mine using an ArcGIS table to give me extra columns in a database file, which I then analyzed. It actually told me like it had an indicator of which cells are neighboring cells. So you can do things like that. Anyway, let me close this one down. Again, I do want you to know how to open, save, add data, and export maps. I think we got that covered, okay? And again, how do you play with symbology? Some of the videos that I posted over there tell you much more. Yeah, the videos are, like, I want to say anything between 1 and 3 hours. So I strongly suggest, as a homework, if you'd like, spend a little bit of time working on them. Okay? I'm talking about this introduction to ArcGIS and maybe even basic kit afterwards. Each of these are like 4 videos. I want to say 30 minutes each, and that will be it. Agreed? We're going to continue on with some more applications Monday, and then Tuesday we're going to do QGIS, which is again a derivative of this.